My family and I are so delighted and so honored to be here with all of you to receive this recognition along with such inspiring fellow honorees and with this faculty, your families, students, and especially you, class of 2015. This is also, for me, a very special recognition, and it's extremely exciting for me to join you, class of 2015, as we accept these credentials and embark on our journeys together. Each of you graduates is now presumably officially qualified with new skills, with new knowledge, and with the responsibilities that you may choose to accept with this credential you'll receive in just a moment. We're gathered here in this time-honored ritual to celebrate your accomplishments and the community that made these achievements possible. But it is also my hope that somewhere in this fantastic brew of people and experience that is a Swarthmore education, you have found an even more important qualification. I hope you have found a personal acquaintance with humility. This place has a way of introducing to even the most talented among us this virtue, humility. And that is true cause for celebration. For I believe humility is one of the great and lasting treasures of a good education. As you've heard, I'm best known as a geneticist, but speaking of that humility, it was a path I started here at Swarthmore with a 48 on my first genetics test. Not apparently an auspicious start, but it's a start that I treasure more than all the A's that came later here and elsewhere. Because from the very beginning, I had to ask for help. I had to keep asking for help. I had to learn how to ask questions, and I had to keep asking questions. These are the most precious skills I learned while a student at Swarthmore College. In preparing for this visit, I caught up with the passionate, inevitably bruising dialogue on this campus about divestment in fossil energy. Of course, I'm not a bit surprised that Swarthmore is on the front edge, asking the hardest questions we face as a society. Our species' addiction to fossil energy now fuels so many fast-moving, globalized dependencies that we have truly entered a new chapter in human history. Some call this new era the Anthropocene, signaling that we now understand that our actions can change our physical world at the largest scales, and that world has limits. I do bring disturbing news from the frontier of science. We don't know what those limits are. Repurposing 20th century science, so much of which has been focused on maximizing outputs and driving efficiencies, does not work very well when the question is how to manage the Earth-human system for the long term. You, class of 2015, are the first generation that has this context squarely in hand and in sight, so that you can see the crazy dissonance of the threats we now face as part of larger patterns, and you can pull into sharp focus the opportunities for innovation in every sphere of human endeavor. Our connectedness creates a host of possibilities, from radical compassion and radical new understandings of self and other, to vulnerabilities on a scale we couldn't have imagined even 10 years ago. Those of you who have led the divestment conversation, and now the whole Swarthmore community, you are forcing the rest of the world to acknowledge, Houston, we've got a problem. And you have understood that capital and the rules that govern how capital moves must be a core element of any solution. Many of the symptoms that cause the most concern in the circles I run in, including the concerns that have prompted the divestment debate, are a direct consequence of a view that says, if I only had more of whatever's on my mind right now, more food, more water, more energy, more tents, more blankets, even more education, or more women's rights. If we only had more, we'll be fine. And that may be true. These may be good things, but it turns out that these things are delivered in systems we don't see at all well. If only because we never decided to look carefully. And over, we have failed to tell the truth about unintended consequences. This insight about limits, is pretty obvious, but its implications for you and for us are profound. In the mid-19th century, when so much of how we work today was set into place, limits were not on our mind. The more paradigm has guided us to a world where we got more, all right. And how we got more is that we pump vast amounts of fossil carbon energy into the Earth-human system. In return, we get a suite of unintended, but actually very foreseeable, in many cases, problems that we now try to solve like a whack-a-mole game at a carnival. We whack at greenhouse gas emissions. We whack at obesity. We whack at groundwater depletion. We whack at dead zones. We whack at instability in the oil-rich Middle East, not understanding that each of these threats is a different facet of related dynamics. And a key piece of that dynamic is pumping too much energy into our system. So the debate here on divestment has already been critically important worldwide. Under the lens of sustainability, we are learning to see our choices in a new light. We are learning to see connections across scales. We're learning to see the importance of time and space. We are learning to set new vocabularies, new values, thinking in ways about our choices and their implications from local to global, and now into the future. We're asking new questions. We're thinking in new ways about rights, including the rights of those who have not yet been born. This is the most amazing moment to be graduating. You will want to know what is the right thing to do. It is in that question, not in the answer of the moment, that lies my hope for your generation and for us all, that you will be the ones to move us from smart to wise. Almost exactly a century ago, Max Weber warned us that the pursuit of disciplinary excellence would inevitably lead to the narrowing and deepening of knowledge, resulting in, among other things, the intellectual impoverishment of individual practitioners and the disenchantment of humankind. We would lose our way in fascinating details. We would lose the connections between art and science, between magic and technology, between information and narrative. We would be trapped in our disciplines like crayfish in a bucket. We'd no longer see the obvious. Smitten with our cleverness, we would fail to ask the really important questions. But here you have stepped up to ask, what is the right thing to do? History shows us that time and time again, human beings can make expensive and difficult changes for good. We've tumbled through the cascade of civil rights, cigarettes, handicapped access, gay marriage, to name just a few of the issues that have moved radically in my lifetime. And when it's time, history tells us also that the new paradigm usually comes in sudden, unstructured conversion-type experiences, led by very young people and those who change fields. So that would be you, and that would be me. So game on, graduates. We've got a lot to do. And while there are many questions about what to do next, one thing science can tell us clearly is that doing a little less bad and a little more good is nowhere near enough. What I hope you've each learned individually in your academic lives and in this community is this. The point of any of these debates is not the answer of the moment, as important as that answer may be. Our current view is always incomplete. The point is to have the courage to join hands with those to your left and those to your right. My hope, my plea to you graduates, to all of us, is to nurture that humility that will allow us to ask and keep asking the important questions of our time and your place. As Lynn Ostrom, the 2009 Nobel laureate in economics, told me before she died, although the economists I know say she wasn't an economist. She was actually a political theorist. She told me there is always a fight. Science is not the fight, but science can elevate the quality of the fight. So when you ask the question, what is the right thing to do? Science can't provide the answer. That's not what science is really for. Although we scientists tend to get a little confused on that point. But good science can shed great light on the right questions to ask. So for those of you so inclined, a Swarthmore education can be a superb foundation from which to stare without flinching at these wicked problems. Actually, for climate change, they invented a technical term related to wicked problems. It's called a super wicked problem. To embrace these problems as interrelated dynamics that may be tamed, if not solved, with courage and love, with honesty and humility about what we know now and what we have yet to see. A word about love. It was the love of some Swarthmore classmates that saved my life about 10 years after I graduated from this place. So love each other well. Love your sisters and your brothers and your parents and your family. Love your neighbors. And keep your demon's hands in plain sight. And for just this moment, just a moment now, let's acknowledge the power and the strength and the love in the web of humanity gathered here before we send you, the Swarthmore class of 2015, on your way to share what you found here and find what will come next. Thank you.